there was an attempt maybe to go for funding. We started in March, April with an idea, genesis of an idea. We wrote very well together for about a couple of visits at Jill's place in Beverly Hills, and I live in the Valley. And then it became sort of hard, so we FaceTime wrote it. And by August, we had a table read. And I had a guy, Matt Danner, who is now director of The Muppet Babies and also the voice of Baby Kermit. He's directed a number of things. He goes, you guys got a really great script. It moves. And this is before Andy made his director cuts to it. Because once we found out that I was going to finance it, Andy goes, well, for example, there's a scene in the forest day. And I'm like, this was supposed to be a night scene. He goes, you can't afford cherry pickers and you can't afford to light up the whole forest. So here's what we're going to do. This scene, I know there was a scene with Mr. Miola, the rival boss, where we interact with him. That was all written indoors with a bunch of kills. He's like, don't have time. Got to cut it. Got to cut it. Got to cut it. The bar scene was a lot more intricate. Don't have time. Got to cut it. Here's how we do it. So it just gelled, and then we basically cast it from our phones because, as I said, we wrote for the people we knew. I knew Vince Don Vito very well, good longtime friend, great actor who plays Vince. We wrote originally Rosafa Justice, Vengeance rather, was written for Deborah Wilson. She wasn't available, and at the last minute, Jill said, "Well, I just did a movie with Monique Coleman." And Monique's in Australia meditating on getting a character that she really wants to play. And it ends up being that Jill calls her and she goes, oh my gosh, I was just meditating on a role like this. Yes, I want to do it. Lucky there. She knows Joe Reitman. She brought in Brett Ernst. I brought in Aaron Hayes because I worked with Aaron Hayes on Kevin Can Wait on the pilot. I knew Tara Strong, amazing voiceover and on-camera actress. And Maurice LaMarche works out at my gym. And I know Mo was originally written for somebody else, but that person fell out, another professional appointment that he had. And so Mo stepped in. Brian Orley is our stuntman who does a nice water stunt. Brian is from the movie the series True Detective Season 3. He's friends with Big Dave Matty, who's our stunt coordinator. Ben Begley is our hunter. Of course, I know Ben because of Funhouse Massacre, and he introduced me to Andy. Ryan Bottiglieri is a filmmaker himself, and I knew those two would pair well as hunters. But actually, one of the bodyguards, Darren, who's the more stout bodyguard, was supposed to be our hunter, but we got rained out, which switched his day. He was disappointed. And I said, Darren, unfortunately, we can't have you as a hunter, but we can flip you to the bodyguard. So we just did all this mixing and matching. Holly Wartell is Mrs. Georgeman. The fantastic Robert Peters, who I met on Funhouse Massacre, great actor. He was Mr. Georgeman. And so we just knew everybody and said, Gary Anthony Williams, I literally called going through a drive-in Taco Bell with my daughters and my wife. We were like, what do you want? You want a quesadilla? You want to, hold on, Gary, can you do this film? He's like, buddy, I'm there. You don't even have to call my agent. And so it's all was casting by phone. No, there was no auditioning. I wrote the role of Carlo, the lead, for myself. And as we thought about casting, we're thinking, boy, getting somebody to play my father would age up both fathers, right? It would really pump them to a higher age. And, so let's think about maybe me playing the dad. And then I had met Rob Belushi and Tim Stoltenberg, who's our salon worker. I met them at a commercial acting improv workshop. Rob showed me a short film that he did with Amy Carrero. And he was amazing in it. He's kind of like a twisted serial killer guy. And we were at an audition together after I'd taken his commercial acting work. And he goes, I'm trying to get this thing done through Blumhouse. And I go, listen, I'm doing a film and I'll tell you about it. But I wasn't ready to cast him. And then when I found that I couldn't play the father because of budget restrictions and all that, Alison Bosch, who knew him growing up on the set of According to Jim, she goes, why don't you cast Rob Belushi? And I went, okay, this is too much serendipity going on. You're right. Rob said yes. He fit right in. He's the eye of the hurricane. He's our straight man with really funny quips. And it all just gelled. It all just fell together.
I mean, hey, come on, everybody. Making movies, it's easy, right?
It's easy. But yeah, finding money is hard. We did an Indiegogo, and I don't think we did it right. The steps weren't in place. And so we raised a little bit of money, and it really did help us with post-production. But, for the most part, we wanted to have some autonomy. We didn't want to give up that to an investor. And I said, no, I really want to make it this way with Andy, with Jill, with Warner Davis, our producer. And everybody just pitched in favors. The Sorelli house, when you get to it, was the house of Greg Armstrong, one of our producers and our set designers. The winery was also a friend of Greg Armstrong's, and the winery location is beautiful cinematographically speaking, cinegraphically speaking, but we got that for next to nothing. Andy Palmer, the last minute we're looking for locations was, I went down to Lake Elsinore and I just went to the dog room and he's like, oh, here's a couple $100 for this, a couple $100 for that. He found those 3 places, the salon, the dog groomers, and DeValio's Fine Foods. You could spit on each of them standing in one spot. So you got to have luck, and you got to work 15, 16-hour days into the night, into the morning, and everybody's got to be little rascals. I'm done. The most fun I had was when my scenes were over, and I'm like, what do you need? Do you need wardrobe? Do you want me to run and get some Starbucks? Do you want me to shake a car for a poor man's driving process? What do you need to make this day go faster? And so it was fun, though, because it's your baby, you know? I've been through a number of things, obviously Reno 911 and a ton of voice acting, Rocko's Modern Life, IMDb, blah, blah, blah. But absolutely. But I've produced things before, too, and that's the most important thing. When you're a producer and you're paying for it, you realize as an actor, you got to show up time, you got to be unprofessional, and I know you want 3 takes, but you got time for 2. Sorry, moving on. But yes, acting helped me to write for sure because I knew what was possible and what might be too broad and what might not work. And ironically, you know, we wrote it pretty much to script, most everything. There's a lot of riffing in this movie. The 2 Birds with One Stone with Gary Anthony Williams and Joe Reitman completely riffed, not us. Ironically, the speech that Monique does was acted word for word how we wrote it. And because we wrote it for Deborah Wilson, and we know Deborah Wilson from Mad TV, Rides a Harley. That we totally wrote that for Deborah because we could see her, and she did it in the table read, and she nailed it. So then Monique, kudos to her, just steps in, and we actually went over it while she's getting makeup on. She goes, I want to make sure we get this right. And she crushes it. She just brings so much, you know, everything to it. She's gotten a lot of great reviews as well, and we were so lucky to have her, and she was so gracious and just nailed it. We were like, after the scene, we were like, thank you. And Tara Strong. I wish I could have written a bigger part for Tara, and Aaron Hayes, who are so facile. And Aaron actually encouraged us to write the additional scene with Father Mike, because originally her character just had the one scene in the bathroom, and she kind of, after a table read, goes, well, you really don't know enough about her to feel sorry for her, so can we add something up front? And so Jill and I were like, oh yeah, we'll write this scene with Father Mike. That lets us know a little bit about her. And then she gets a nice scene in the bathroom as well. Always with an indie, and especially in this genre, comedy horror or horror comedy, there's such rabid fans that you needed to build up some momentum before you launch or distribute. Because it's hard being, sort of the underdogs, because studios will make independent films, right? And you can't compete with their advertising. So when you go to the festivals and meet people face to face, unfortunately, because of COVID, we couldn't. So we did everything virtually, but they're so important because you meet the fans and they get to spend, like I've done a ton of conventions as well, signing for animated characters in Reno and stuff. And you can't beat that, meeting people face to face and asking questions. They want to know, because your audience, is it possible? And certainly Joey Medina is a comic. You can go to Joey Medina on Instagram, and he makes films all the time. He's experimenting with iPhones, different setups that are cheaper. Now, we got these cameras because Andy made a deal with somebody. Philippe, his DP, works on a bunch of commercials that are financed by people overseas. They work tightly together. What we learned was, and this happens when you go to festivals, because people want to know, can I make these? Like, if you get the cast you want and you get a good DP and a good first AD and everybody's on board, it's possible, you know? But you have to be willing to have your script be sliced up, pared down, and make it fit into what budget you have. But that being said, yeah, these festivals are really important because they get to see that somebody did it, you know? This started on a legal pad. I wasn't, I work with Robert Ben-Garant and Tom Lennon. And they wrote a book called How to Make Billions in Screenwriting. And just personally, they would tell me all their horror stories of scripts like, nah, I don't like that character because it reminds me of the girl who picked on my daughter in school. So get rid of that character. Like, okay. All the studio notes that they have to do, all the things that they have to put up with for things that never get seen. And those guys have written and written and written and written. And we get lucky enough to write a script that if we waited for money, might have been hard to get. So we just went for it. And so the festival vibe teaches you that. What are some innovative ways I can get money? What are some innovative ways I can shoot? How do I save on locations? That's the biggest thing. Should I go to a place that permits? Should I go to no? If I have to put people up, is that worth it? You find out all these things, and I think it's best to start when you go to these festivals. There's a lot of great short form festivals that we've been a part of too, and you see some amazing shorts. So that's also a possibility with the festival. Yeah, I totally dig, and I'm so sad that we didn't get to go to these festivals personally. That would have been a blast. And even doing meetings like this, it would be nice someday to go do these things in person and have a panel. And we had one festival, the Ha Festival in San Antonio last year, February, before COVID broke out. And that was a comedy festival, not a film festival, but people really dug it. A lot of the credit goes to Jill, who really had structure down, demanding that we do an outline and then a summary and then a character write-up and then start on the script, so that we had a roadmap. Because I would be like, let's write a script. I got a bunch of ideas. And then you know how it goes. You're like, I'm going. Oh, I'm in a ditch. How do I get out of this? Oh, God, I got to go back and fix this. If I don't fix this, I can't get here. And then you review it. And like I said, Andy went through it with a red pen and just said, this won't work. This won't work. And you have to lose your babies. I had my character, Mr. Sorelli, had so much more dialogue to lay out. Here's what's going to happen in the movie. And he goes, you're telling people what's going to happen instead of just showing them what's going to happen. But as an actor, I'm going, well, what about all my lines? Nope. All we need you to say is, this wedding is going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, boom, that's it. I'm out. But no, I had this beautiful speech. Nope. Don't need it, dude.
Thank you so much. And congrats on the movie, your first written feature, I believe, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Well, I hope you love it. Hope you tell your friends, and we'll see how it does.